Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. We're going to be talking about what boards should know about digital strategies. And joining me as our expert for today's show is Alex Schmelkin, who's the board member with Ascendant Incorporated. He is also the CEO and founder of Cake and Arrow, which is a digital customer experience. Welcome, Alex.
Great, thanks for having me here.
Well, let's first start. Why don't you educate the audience on Ascendant, just real quick on what they do and where you serve on the board.
Sure, so Ascendant is a wholesale distributor of workplace products, things like janitorial and break room items, traditional office products, technology, industrial. And as a wholesaler, we provide a great assortment to our customers to be able to sell to their end users, fulfillment and logistics services, marketing and digital tools, all so they can act in better service of their end customers.
Well, you would be categorized as a next-gen director. You joined the board, in your 30s. You actually, through your experience, work every day with digital, and I'm sure that's what made you attractive to the current board that you sit on. So I want to turn the tables just a little bit, and I want to ask you that, this digital stuff is challenging for a lot of directors. So if I had asked you to build a training program, what would be in your curriculum that would help boards understand the contribution that digital is going to make to their companies in the future?
I'd start with trying to define digital. Digital as a word has become this all-encompassing thing, and in a way it's actually lost a lot of its meaning. And to me, I'd ask the directors to think about digital being this great intersection between sales, marketing, technology, and customer service, kind of all coming together and focusing on a single point. And the areas to study, the areas to really understand what it means, it all starts with a obsessive core focus on the customer. So many great public companies have built up fantastic mechanisms to build products, distribute products, but what directors need to understand these days is that the customer and an obsession with their needs and wants and desires and how they want to do business with you and where they want to do business with you, I'd throw out that that's kind of the core of what we as directors need to understand are going to allow the businesses of the boards we serve on to be successful. And a way to do that is to actually ask directors to spend a lot of time with users and with end customers. Often we get our feedback about customers filtered through management, and a way to really study quickly, what drives experience, what drives satisfaction at a particular company is maybe participate in some workshops, maybe participate in some user sessions, and really get kind of the heart and soul of what users and customers expect out of a company. The second thing I'd say is digital is about experimentation, and often big companies are sometimes slow moving, sometimes they're more risk adverse, and the trick to digital is to kind of reversing that trend and saying any business, no matter what industry you're in, you need to start thinking and acting like a retailer and moving at the speed of a retailer. So on Monday, launch a promotion. On Tuesday, measure it. On Wednesday, see if it's working or not, and rinse and repeat. And I'd invite board members who are thinking about what digital means is to figure out ways in their businesses on which they're serving on the board to identify what does it mean to accelerate. And also, what does it mean to take risk, to think about risk differently? 90% of all large IT projects still aren't delivering value to shareholders and value to the business after you kind of look at the all-in costs. And it's probably because big companies are tight and they're afraid to take some of the risks. And what I'd say is digital means breaking things up into much smaller bite-sized chunks and go out there and actually be willing to do something, take a measured risk, see the impact, and then figure out how it's going to impact the organization.
Well, that's interesting. I'm sure you see where when somebody says digital, they think anything technology related,
Yeah.
cyber risk, IT, whatever, but each of them are in a way tied together, but they're also unique to their own strategies, correct?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that the term digital has become perhaps synonymous with cybersecurity and cyber risk, and that's another critical component. Directors need to understand the role that they play in helping businesses to manage their cyber risk, and it can no longer be relegated to a subcommittee. You can no longer just purely trust that management is taking care of all of the cyber, the cyber vulnerabilities that a business could have. And I'd say that a board member who's studying on this should question and challenge appropriately management to bring those cyber issues directly into the boardroom, establish the appropriate scorecards, understand how your business is doing, and kind of operate under this assumption that people with bad intentions are probably inside your networks already, and kind of understanding what that means to run your business in that fashion.
Well, that's great advice. So let's turn the tables just a little bit. So I had mentioned that you joined the board in your 30s.
Yeah.
That means you're going to be 25 to 30 years younger than anybody else who's probably sitting on your board. If the retirement age is 72 or 75, that means you could serve on the board for 40 years,
Right.
okay?
Right.
Which obviously is not going to be acceptable to a lot of investors. That tenure would be way too long. So as a next-gen director, okay, somebody that's in this situation, how would you propose to solve that? What should be put in place so that when these younger and younger board members are joining the board, how do we have graceful exits or whatever?
Yeah.
Tell me your solution to that problem.
I don't think we want to look back 20, 30 or more years from now and find a whole slate of next-gen directors that have served for 40 years on their boards. That's not a desired outcome. And I think that board tenure, the length of service, is just going to be another aspect that goes into the annual board review when you're looking at all your current board members and thinking about succession, thinking about skills matrix, and probably having some harder discussions along the way as board members are continuing to age in their service, particularly those that joined young. I think that there's the concept of term limits. It's not something necessarily that a board wants to impose on itself, because it wants the flexibility to say, look, if there's someone that's been around here for 12, 15 years and they're still providing value, well, maybe that board member really is a critical member of the future. But I think the discussion of term limits will have to surface as people from the younger side actually are serving on boards for longer and longer. Soon enough, though, after you're on for 5, 10, 15 years, you're no longer that young board member anymore. It kind of reminds me, I was recently invited to speak at a young alumni event at the college that I went to, and I showed up and I thought that, I was one of the young alumni, but I looked around and realized, no, I was actually speaking to the young alumni. I was no longer one of them. So, I think in the same vein, even a young director, after serving for some while on the board, is going to develop and kind of get all of those skills that they need to contribute in strong ways.
Well, we still have the challenge of people being effective with their board evaluations, meaning that usually they do one, but they don't take action. Data has shown that they don't take action when they have information that says they should take action. So there may have to be something a little stronger if we see this. Now, obviously, we have quite the window to wait till we see what happens related to this, but it's interesting. I think this is something that at some point in time, we are going to have to get our arms around and figure out what's going to happen. But you're a perfect example of the new board member coming on today's public companies and sort of what they bring. So, Alex, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us.
Great, thank you very much for having me.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take a look at another critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.